Okay, beautiful. So Kerrie, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I am so excited for this episode. I'm so excited for your manifestations, for you to share these. Every single time you message me, and you're like, this happened. I'm like, yes. And that's literally like why I do this work. Like, I love when I manifest things, but honestly, like hearing people in my courses or my one-on-one clients, when they're manifesting things or things are shifting for them, like that's what lights me up. That's what keeps me going. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and let people know what you do. And then I would love to tell a little bit of the story of my side of how you came into my vortex, and then hear your side of it. And then where you were before you took my course, and then things that happened throughout, your favorite things, because so many things happened, and where you are now and what's going on now. So.
Okay, well, I'm Kerrie Ann Myers, and I'm an astrological counselor. And what I do is I work with people, I work with individuals, I work with couples, I work with companies, I work with families. We look in their astrological charts, we understand what's happening for them and how to make the most of what's coming up. And I counsel them through any little things that we find in their chart that are blocking them from their destiny. And I love this work. It's magic work. And so it's so aligned. It's so aligned that I connected with you, because it's like this is what you do, Kerrie. So of course, this is what's showing up. So
Of course, I literally have my wand right here. I showed this to one of my mentors, Dr. Connolly. It's like, I know you use white magic, but I'm conscious not to make you angry, because I don't know if you use black magic. I'm like, I don't, but here's my wand.
You do have a wand. Yes.
I do have a wand. I have all the things spiritual. I have 4 altars just in this room alone. You'll get to see them when you do Reiki 1 and 2. I'm so excited you're doing that.
I'm so excited too. I'm really blessed. I'm excited about it.
It's going to be so magical, because I add a lot of shamanic healing as well, because I feel like it's really important for people to learn this. And there's so many things that I didn't learn the first few years. And then my shamanic teacher, who I literally manifested meeting, I was talking to my coach about that this morning, because anyways, there was a number of synchronicities there. She really taught me how to protect the space and cleanse the space properly, and protect my energy, which I wish somebody taught me at the beginning of my training. And you'll hear stories during Reiki. But anyways, let's get into the podcast. So basically what happened with my launch of this course, actually the retreat that I channeled the course, the first draft of it. And of course, I was revamping it for the last 1.5 years up until each module, with the downloads that I got and the lessons that I learned. But I was supposed to close the doors to the course before I met you. And what happened was the back end all got messed up for my master classes. Of course, everything is always working out for us. So in those moments, I could have been like, oh my God. And I'm not doing this, or why is this happening to me? But I just trusted it happened for a reason. So instead of doing 1 masterclass, I ended up doing 3, because all the funnels were broken. So I was like, okay, I got another one. And then they were still broken. And then I found a new OBM who saved my life. Thank goodness. She's actually one of my coach's OBMs, but yeah, she ended up fixing the funnel. And that was literally 2 hours before the masterclass that you came to. And you had seen my eye story just prior. So had all that back end mix up and mayhem not have happened, you wouldn't have been in the course. And so I feel so strongly that that was one of the main reasons that all of that stuff happened, because your eye situation, which I would love you to share. And for everybody listening who hasn't heard my story, it is on my Instagram. It's also on YouTube. And I'm going to get that on the podcast as well. But yeah, I feel that was a really profound connection point, and hearing about how your eyes have improved since the course. And then just all the manifestations, So yeah, I will let you start with where you were before the course and how you found me. And that video and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, where I was before the course, I am an American living up here in Vancouver and going to grad school up here. And I came up here with my husband, who is now my ex-husband. We decided to dissolve the marriage during the course of me being up here, and we're really good friends and all that stuff. So what's crazy is that like he was in a new relationship and he said, let's, I think we need to go ahead and just do the divorce because we've just been kind of like hanging out for 2 years and just like, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I guess this is time for us to go ahead and do this. And almost immediately I started having all of these health issues. And I was like, so confused because I was like, I don't understand where this is coming from. This is like psychologically, mentally, I'm totally fine with this, but my body is doing something different, right? I don't know what's going on. So some of the symptoms I had was blurry vision. I had double vision. I also had like numbness in my limbs. And I went to the hospital, the emergency room here in Vancouver, and was like, they were like, we don't know what's going on, and I was just like, and so basically I started going online just to be like, how can I treat myself? Because, the Canadian hospitals were saying that they couldn't do anything. I went across the border to Washington to go to the emergency room there because I was like, okay, maybe I have to go to where my health insurance is. And they did all these scans and they were like, we can't find anything wrong. And I'm like, gosh, I really need to and also this is what's interesting is when I was in the first emergency room I went to in Canada, I was in there for 5 hours. Okay. I was in there and I kept hearing this voice in my head tell me, Kerrie, there's nothing modern medicine can do for you. You're going to have to heal this yourself. And I just kept being like, first of all, I'm really like funny with whenever I get like insights like that, because I'm like, well, I'm already here in the emergency room. Thanks for telling me that now, but I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so I started looking up online, like what are ways that you can heal yourself holistically. I found a number of like Joe Dispenza meditations and on YouTube, and I started just like doing that, just being like, I don't know what this is, but let me start doing this. What's interesting is that a friend of ours, our mutual friend of ours, my friend Laura, she had been listening to me talk about all these symptoms that I was having, and she was trying to help me, like find people or find things that I could do. And she told me about your video. And she said, this woman, she has this, the video, and she's talking about healing her eyes, and on her own. And that's what clicked to me. But it was like, oh, she healed her eyes with her own self. And there wasn't any intervention. And so I was like, oh, so I listened to the video, or I watched the video. What's interesting too, Jill, is that you don't appear in the video. Like the video is like, I don't know, it's like a picture of an altar or like something like that. So I didn't see you.
What?
I didn't see you in the video.
I'm on the video. I need to look that up. Okay, I'm on the one on my
Look on the video, because the one she sent me, it's like an altar. So I didn't know what you looked like. I just heard your voice, and it was, and so I didn't know where she got the video from. It was like a link to an Instagram, and that's what she sent to me. So what's funny is that after I listened to the video and I was like so completely moved by the whole thing, I was like, oh my God. And I contacted her and I said, where is this woman? I want to meet her. And she said, I think she lives like a block or two from you. I was like, because I'm like, I didn't know this could be anywhere in the world that she had sent me this video from somebody. And she's like, I think she lives a block or two from you, which was amazing because at that time, my eyes were blurry, so I wasn't able to drive. So I was really worried about, I couldn't get to people if I needed to. So the fact that you were so close also was huge, because then I could actually be in the proximity. So yeah, then I think she contacted you or I contacted you and I said, hey, can I, sign up or do something? And you were like, oh, I'm actually having this whole masterclass happen and we're going to do a Q&A and show up. And I think it was literally like that day or a couple of days later.
Literally that day. May I interject? Okay. So firstly, I'm going to send you the video where I'm actually on. I don't know where that other one is where I'm not, but the craziest thing happened. So I didn't want to record that video. And I kept getting like this, like these strong like pings from spirit and being like, you need to record this video. Like people need to see this video. And then there was one day I had 4 messages. I opened up my journal to this, like, it was a manifestation ritual that I did on the beach in Vancouver that literally was the ritual that got me to that retreat that was sold out. 3,000 people were on the wait list. The rooms were like, I think it was 200 to 400 people in the rooms. I ended up, I mean, you heard the story, like it was, I got in, jumped the wait list. Other people that I know were trying to get in, didn't get in. I got a room with a friend, and then I got a place to stay in Florida for a month and someone to take care of my dog, all in the course of 15 minutes. This was like a week and a half after I did that ritual before the eye thing happened, but 15 minutes. And it was like boom, boom, boom. And I had booked a trip to Costa Rica, and I was like, oh my God, like, okay, there's a reason that I need to go here now. Like I literally just got my manifestation. I canceled my trip, even though like in that moment I didn't want to, but I just knew I needed to. And the morning I recorded that video which was like maybe a few days or a week before Laura sent it to you. I opened my journal to that page of that manifestation, like when I was creating it. And then I had the doctor who told me, who's also a friend of mine, and with the eye situation, had messaged me. And then there was like 2 other things. And I was like, oh, I think I dreamed about it. And I was like, okay, I'm recording it. Like, I don't care. And when you see the video, you'll see, like, I'm like so anxious because I'm like, people are going to think I'm crazy. And many people like message me and they're like, oh my goodness, this story is so inspiring. Like that we're healing from like other health issues. And it was like the synchronicities that happen. But like, if I didn't listen, I think this is a key point for everybody who's listening. Like if I didn't listen to spirit, to these messages from the divine, like you would have never seen that video. You would have never had the opportunity to discover this other form of healing, which is, by the way, the same way we manifest. For everybody listening, healing certain ailments is the same process as manifesting. It's the same thing. It's bringing things into coherence. So like the divine timing of all of it, it was like, you must record this video now. And I was like, okay, using my body as a vessel to speak. But I was like so scared. And then Laura saw it like a couple days later. And then it was the morning that I did the masterclass, that extra masterclass for the Q&A, that she sent you the video, or that you contacted me and she contacted me. Like it was like, and I think I sent you the link like an hour before. So it's like these things, sometimes I feel people don't listen and try, like, because it's always scary. Like even when I picked up and left Canada, or when they told me like not to leave because I needed to be here to heal my eye, and I'm like, I need to go to heal my eye. Like there was a reason for that retreat. And like, I already believed that I could, because I'd met people who were expanders for me who had healed their eyes in different situations. And I've had so many miracles, but like, these are the times that it's like, listen to these pings, because when we don't, in my experience, it's like, okay, I'm not going to listen. And it's like taps. And then all of a sudden it's like a 2x4 and you're like, okay, like, now all this other stuff happened. Like for me, I tore my ACL. I actually had to tear my ACL to get to leave a job that I was so stubborn. I didn't want to leave. Otherwise I would have missed a timeline, and that I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. But it's like these things that are like these synchronicities, follow them. They're gold. They will bring us to where we're supposed to be. And that requires so much trust in something greater that it's like so scary.
It's very scary.
That it's like, I have never been let, like I have been held in ways by the universe, by the divine, by my guides, in ways that like words cannot even explain. Like you can't make this stuff up.
You cannot make this stuff up.
So anyways, I want to interject about like the timing of it, so people like really understood like this. When we're in these times where it's like, why is this not happening? There's a reason. There's a greater reason. And you see it looking forward, but you can see it looking back.
Yes.
So please continue. So,
and that happened quite a few times, even after the class was over, I would have these things that I was trying to manifest, and they would show up, but I almost feel like they would show up in these kind of like, weird ways, like the doll without an eye, like it would just be like, yeah, I'm trying to manifest this relationship and he's perfect, but there's this one thing, and so then I'd go and I'd be, kind of stubborn, like, I want to make it work with this person. Like, I really like him. And then I would go, then I'd have to have this moment of just like you were saying with the universe, from like, keep smacking me over in the head, like missed appointments, just weird things that would happen, would be like, this isn't him. It isn't him. And as soon as I did something that you mentioned in the class, which was making a choice, that was one of the biggest takeaways that I got, was like, make a choice. And even if you're like, even your absence is making a choice. Like, not making a choice is actually still making a choice. Yeah. And so when I made the choice to be like, I'm willing to let this person that I've invested some time in, or at least my romantic fantasies in, I'm willing to let him go for something more aligned to me. It's like, boom, literally, this happened a few times, just like in the last month, this another guy would show up and it'd be like, oh, hello, and you just completely forget about this person that you like invested all this other time in. And so just starting to work with the universe and go, I say things like, I step aside and let the universe provide, because clearly it knows better than I do. And it's just much more magical. Life is much more magical that way.
So magical. And yeah, those are choice points. When we get caught in this fallacy of investment, I invested all this time, all this energy, all this money, it's not in alignment. Those, like, when we release that, it's like we get more resourced. It's not less resource, but it's not always easy.
Mm-hmm. It's getting easier though. Once you start seeing the manifestations just show up so quickly, you're willing to let things go, because you're like, oh, this is not aligned.
100%.
Something better.
It's like sometimes it just takes one activation to go back. Okay, what am I struggling with here? Oh, boundaries. Oh, let's do the boundaries activation. Oh, I'm judging that person. Let's do the shadow activation. And like that, it's like the stories that I hear, like one woman, she just purchased the shadow activation, the prosperity one. And I made that one like separate so people could buy it, because I was like, a lot of people are struggling with this. She listened to it once and then she got gifted $5,000, and she was judging people with money, but she wanted money. And then she's like, why does everyone get to go on vacations? And then literally somebody gifted her $5,000 to go on a vacation. Like, it's like, sometimes it only takes one. And sometimes it's like, okay, a few weeks of the same activation, or like understanding a new concept, like firstly mentally, and then practicing it. And then it just becomes second nature, like the 3 stages. But okay, let's get back to your story. So you found my video, you came to the question and answer, you signed up, and then what started to happen for the audience? Like, what started to happen when you signed up with your eye situation and just things in your life?
Oh my God. So the first, I thought, I really thought I'm showing up here for the eye, like, that's what I was like, okay, let me just do this, get this eye thing. Like, it's just like, because I work as an astrologer, which means I couldn't really do my job if I couldn't see properly. And so I was like, everything was on the line here, and I'm getting divorced. So I'm like, this is my livelihood. Like, I need to be able to do this work. Does that mean I need to do some other type of work? There was just so much going on. And then at the same time, divorce can kind of be a hit to your self-esteem, where you're just like, oh, am I ever going to fall in love again? Is ever, like, there's all these, superficial things that show up, but like, those were real concerns of mine at the time, which was just 3 months ago. Like, when I think about it now, I'm like, this just happened over the things that have happened in 3 months, the manifestations, it's skyrocketed. It's amazing. The business that's come in, the romantic options that I have, right? It's just like, what? So yeah, I started with the eye, and I focused on that and healing that. And it was interesting because I would have these, I only had the knowledge that you had healed your own eye, although because I don't know if I would have believed it otherwise. I needed that validation that somebody has done this, and I'm actually talking to her all the time. Like, she did it, and I can do this. But what started happening is that, I started getting people reaching out to me wanting to help or being like, can I do this for you? Can I do that for you? I had to have these 2 MRIs tests done to basically be like the final indication that that something major wasn't wrong with me. They actually thought that I had multiple sclerosis. So that was like this huge fear that I had, that like, and I could not get across the border to get these freaking MRIs. And I know I told you this story where I would just be like, every time I try to get the MRI, because I had to go across to Washington to get it, I would be like, there'd be like a traffic jam, or there would be like my friend who was supposed to take me, like her son had to go to the emergency room. And I would just be like, and I remember texting you and being like, I don't know what's happening. And you were like, I don't think you're supposed to get this MRI, and I was like, yeah, like something doesn't want me to get this MRI at that time. What's interesting is that I had a friend of mine who's an Akashic reader, which you know a little bit about, and she called me out of the blue and she was like, Kerrie, do you want to have a reading? And I was like, sure, yeah, give me a reading. I don't even totally really know what the Akashic records were, but I know she's brilliant and that people worked with her for years. And so I was like, sure, thank you. And she did a reading. And one of the things she said in the reading was like, she said, they're telling me that you need to, I had planned to go back home to California so that I could be near healthcare there and just friends and family. And she said, they're telling me that you need to get these MRIs done before you go back to California. And I was like, again, being a wise ass with the universe, I was like, well, do they know that they said I can't get an appointment until March, and you're telling me, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, they told me 3rd time's the charm. I get off the phone and I did a little, like, I use the what if. I use what if a lot. There's one of the techniques I use, what if. I use what if this thing just happens, right? So I got off the phone with her, called the MRI place. I said, is there any way I can get these 2 MRIs before I go to California? And the guy on the phone was like, you have to get 2 MRIs. We can't do it on the same day. You'd have to come back 2 days later. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't drive because of my vision, and all this stuff. And then literally on the phone, he goes, wait, can you come tomorrow? And I was like, yes, like that's something I've learned through the masterclass too, is just say yes, just say yes. Like you don't know how it's going to happen and it's none of your business. So I said, yes, I can. And he's like, all right, if you can be here at 11:30 tomorrow in Washington, we will get both your MRIs done. And he was like, somebody just canceled while you were on the phone. So I was just like, okay, boom. So then I had this next issue of how was I going to get across the border with, and I have a car, but my blurry vision, I hadn't been able to drive for more than like a half an hour without getting sick, getting nauseous. Mm-hmm. So I just said, I'm going to leave 3 hours early and I'm going to, every time I have to roll, like get nauseous, I'm gonna pull over to the side and I'll just leave really early so that I can still make this appointment. I got up really early, 7 o'clock, and I left for that appointment. That's 11:30. I had complete clear vision the entire time that I was driving across the border. This is like a miracle. I know when I told you, I was like, does this happen? Like, this is biblical. Like, it was even raining that day. And I was literally like, it's raining. This is the first time I've driven in 2 months, maybe. No nausea, no blurry vision. What's interesting, I got across the border in no time. So I was early. And then what was interesting, which I said before, is that I decided I had time to kill, right? So I went to Trader Joe's to get, just to get stuff, while I was waiting. And when I got to Trader Joe's, all my vision was blurry again. So when I was outside of the car, couldn't see, like vision blurry, like I'm trying to read the labels on stuff at Trader Joe's and I can't. Get back in the car, vision is fine. So I'm just like, something is guiding me here. I was like playing music in the car. I was singing, like, I was just like, oh, I get the MRI. That was completely easy. Got back across the border, no vision problems, no nausea. They said the doctor was going to call me in 2 weeks with the results. They called me the next day. They said, your eyes are completely clear. Everything's clear. No MS, no nothing. And I said, well, what does this mean? And they said, it means, this is what was chilling. It says, it means there's nothing medically wrong with you. And I just remember being like being in that Vancouver emergency room and hearing that there's nothing that modern medicine can do for you, Kerrie. And so it's like this kind of conclusion. It was like, this is not going to be it, but it's almost like I needed that, I needed that. And my friend who had done the Akashic reading was like, there's something, they're telling me there's something that you need to, once you have the MRI information, then you can go to California and there'll be healers there for you. And that's what happened. I went to California. And so here's the thing. I'm in California and I'm staying at a couple of Airbnbs. I'm staying with friends and things like that. But I didn't get a car because I still had I was like, if I have this blurry vision, I don't want to, have a car and everything. Everything that I needed just showed up. Everything I needed. And business, in terms of business, because my second biggest fear outside of the eyesight was that I couldn't make money, or I couldn't be making money. And I decided to do a very big thing with my business, which is I wanted to start adding my services to other people's programs. So like I wanted to work with 7-figure business coaches, and I wanted to work with companies, which I worked with companies before, but I wanted a contract. Like I wanted them to contract me to work with them on a year-long basis for all their employees. That was my goal. So what happens is another friend of mine calls me up and she's like, I'm working with this business coach. She makes like 7 figures. She makes, her clientele, the clientele that make the lowest income make 500K and the highest are in the millions and billions. And I was like, oh, that's lovely. And she said, she found your website and she wants a reading. She wants a reading with you. And I'm like, that right? And I was like, okay. So the woman reached out to me like a day later, and she was like, I'd like to do a reading. I did a reading for her. It was kind of like, I have to say, like, I'm a really good astrologer. And so I'm used to people being like, that was amazing. She was just like, thank you. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I'm a Leo too. So I need like all this like grandiose theatrics, So I was like, oh, I guess she's not going to feed my ego and tell me that I'm really good at this. So then a couple of days later, I had a hospital bill that I was having to pay. And it was way more than I thought I was going to pay for this particular bill. And I was anxious about it. And I was like, oh man, this sucks. I didn't want to pay this much. And then all of a sudden I said, Kerrie, you're going to make this money back. And almost immediately, my phone blew up. Like my phone, like the little thing that says you have a new email. I look at the email and it's that 7-figure business coach reaching out to me, asking me if I can work with her. And if she's having this big online event and she wants to introduce me as her personal astrologer at the event in front of all of these new clientele that I would now have access to, who make all this money. And that was probably one of the ones that was just like, literally, as soon as I said, you're going to make this back, Kerrie, it's like, boom, something happened.
Exactly. And it's like, we don't need to worry about the how. Like, I really want to bring that to people's attention. Like, you are the magnet. We are the magnet. We can draw these resources to us. So many people are like, how? And it's like, it's not the how, it's the choice, getting in energetic alignment, doing the rituals, doing the energy work, doing the rewiring work, and like understanding these fundamental universal laws. And then the resources just appear in ways we could have never expected. Like the chances of her just finding your website, like that is divine intervention. But you became an energetic match to that. And even when you release that money, it's like, okay, I'm paying this off. This happens to me all the time. It's like, okay, here, hospital bill, trusting, and then it always comes back. And most of the time you can't anticipate, just like in that moment, because like for money specifically, I love talking about like the energetics of money. Like I'm doing a mini masterclass on this coming up. And I have a full course on this called Surrendering into Abundance, but like the energetics of it, it's like, if we cap one end, like the outflow, we also cap the inflow. So many people have like leakages, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to invest in this thing, but it's like, okay, then you're signaling to the universe, if that's in alignment. If it's not, then that's okay, because we want to be intentional. But if something is in alignment and we just don't want to invest in it, we're just telling the universe, okay, don't send us more abundance, because we're just a funnel. We are, it's not like it will go in the path of least resistance, and we are the vessel that it can come through to use as resources in these pathways. So like, that's another energetic. I don't know if I ever told you about that before, but it's like, I didn't know that story. I knew part of it. I knew that she had messaged you and that you were working with her mastermind, but I didn't know that you had just paid off that hospital bill. But that makes so much sense, because it's like, okay. And then the universe is like, oh, yay, here. It was like my trip to Greece when I studied with the healer. I didn't have the money. I made the choice, and boom, within 24 hours, it was like an acting check from a year and a half prior. And like the amount of time this has happened to me so many times, like so many times, that I'm like, okay, thank you, Spirit. I will follow your guidance. I know you'll give me resources. Just tell me what to do. Tell me to serve. Like, and one more thing on this, audience, you're getting like a lot here. So take these nuggets of gold. So many people think they need to rely on a source, like their job, a specific bonus, an affiliate link, a career path that they've taken, like a certain investment, a client. And it's like, I don't look at it that way. It's like the moment I'm like, I need this client, or I need this people to sign up for this affiliate, or I need people to buy Kangen, or I need people to come to the ceremony. Like, I block the source. The source is spirit, and also the codes that I'm holding. Whenever I release that and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna trust, like it just comes in the most miraculous ways. I remember I celebrated, well, it was 8 months ago, I had my first 10K month, and then I didn't celebrate. And we talk about celebration.
Yes, I'm like, chill.
Just like opportunities kept coming. So I was supposed to go to Vancouver Island to the spa and celebrate, and I didn't, but then I ended up doing it last month. I'm going to do a post about this soon. And I was like, okay, now I've had like 5-figure days, like Jill, it's time to go celebrate. So I went, and I remember I was like, I'm going to get the massages, and I'm going to like treat myself to dinner, and I'm just like not going to restrict. And I kid you not, I had 2 people sign up for affiliate links for programs that I wasn't even advertising when I was there. I looked up these people. I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. Like, well, one of them I did, and the other one, I'm like, apparently they've been following me. I'm like, I didn't even advertise in this program, but it was like the weirdest thing. And it was right after, because I remember I was like, oh, maybe I don't need a massage. And then I was like, no, Jill,
this you need
celebrate. You preach celebration. Like, you hold this, it's like a standard, like with my clients and in my containers, it's like celebrating each other. Because like you said earlier, it's the 4-minute mile. Like the fact that I healed my eye, you can too. That's with everything. That's with money, opportunity, all of these things. Like, there is so much abundance, and we all have different gifts. And this is also how we create the new world, is like, you win, I win, you win, like more for you, more for me, more for all. Can you imagine a world where everybody is living their gifts and their human design? Like, how vital is that? That is prosperity. We're so brainwashed to think there's not enough for everybody. There is more than enough for everybody, especially when everybody's contributing in their own unique way. But yeah, the energetics of that, it's like, when we're intentional about those things and we see the energetics and clear the distortions, like the resources just come. They just come. And when we're like constricting or not living our purpose or not like contributing with our gifts, then the resources are like stagnant, because that's like, you're not living your purpose. You're not doing things of the highest. And I've seen this, like when I got into this in my own life and like with clients, and it's like, hey, where can you contribute? It's actually a law of prosperity. Like, contribute, and then it always comes back. Contribute, and it always comes back. I'm not talking about self-sacrifice. That is like not a vibe, as you know. This is definitely not a vibe, because we need to be resourced in order to be at our best, for humanity. But it always comes, but we have to make the choice. If we don't make the choice, then the resources can't come. The divine can't support us. It will never override our free will. So anyways, there's a mini transmission. But But yeah, that's
I
so
love
amazing.
it.
And like the more you make these choices, and I know you are, I would love you to share some more of your stories and manifestations.
Choice. Oh my God. Well, that was when, like, cause me, I'm like, I have 3 planets in Virgo, which means I'm like, if you tell me to do it, Jill, I'm doing it, like so literally I wrote down everything in the class. I'm doing activations on a daily basis. It was like, just
Yes.
like you were saying, I was like, oh, am I jealous of that person? Time to do a shadow activation, like, oh, do I feel guilt? Time to do, like some sort of like guilt, getting rid of guilt. Do I have a fear about this? It was like, it was just like, the tools, because we feel those things before, but I never paid attention to them or thought they were in the way of my manifestations. But now that I knew that, I was like, oh, this is an opportunity actually, every time it shows up. So I'm doing that. I do it every day. It's like, what do I want to clear today? What boundary do I want to set today? What's my minimum standard today? And so because I was going through this course with you, and I was also experiencing like this abundance stuff going on with my health. And then I was back in California with friends. And so I wasn't like distracted by a lot of things. It's like I could see things happening. I could be very specific, with my shadow integrations and all this stuff. So I could literally see things happening as like in minutes, they were happening. And I was starting to go like, oh my God, it's like I'm in a video game, like
Literally.
and so there were 2 things that came like one after another. One was I was like, oh, I'd really like to like date while I'm down here and, just have some like romantic interactions while I'm down here and just kind of like get into that again. And then the other thing that was coming up for me was places to stay, right? Because I was in California and I was going to stay there for a month and I was going to stay with friends. But then there are times when you're like, I like to be on my own now. So I was like, okay, so when I'm not with friends, I will get like an Airbnb like for a week or whatever and have that time by myself. And so at about maybe 3 weeks into my trip, I realized that my passport was expiring in August and I had planned to doing some international travel this summer. So I'm going to Spain in South Africa in July. And my friend was like, oh, you need to have that, like they're not going to let you into Spain if your passport expires in August. Right. And so there's like these rules about that. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to stay in here in California longer and get this passport renewed. So I went ahead and did that, but that meant that I was going to be staying there longer and spending more money, right? Because to stay at places. So I had this morning where I was like, oh man, I said, I do not want to spend any more money on places to stay, but I also don't want to be like, staying with my friends all the time. Like I like having time to myself too, right? It's like, I'd love to be with them when I'm with them. But I also want to be able to like go somewhere and not be there, so I was like, and I remember that morning I was moving into this new Airbnb that I was staying for a week. And I was just getting stressed about like, I'm spending a lot of money because I'm having to stay here and wait for this passport. So I go to the grocery store. I get settled in my new Airbnb. I went to the grocery store. I don't know if I told you this story. And I bought a gallon of alkaline water. Did I tell you this crazy ass story? Anyway, so I had these groceries. What?
Can I just say, I'm so glad you drink alkaline water. I sell Kangen.
You I did it because you mentioned it. And I was like, wait, I saw this alkaline water. And I was like, Jill said to drink alkaline water.
I just got back and I was like, my Kangen. I was breaking out so much when I was gone. It always happens when I leave my Kangen. And I'm like, I need it. So I'm so glad you drink alkaline water. It makes the biggest difference, especially for manifesting. And
oh my gosh. Well, okay. Now that I'm hearing this is crazy because this was also, you were in this too, because I bought the gallon of alkaline water. I brought a couple other groceries and I bought the gallon of alkaline water and I was in walking distance that I could walk back to my Airbnb. Mm-hmm. But as I'm like, maybe 5 blocks from the Airbnb, I started going, why did I buy this freaking gallon of alkaline water? Like, I'm like, my head hurts, my neck hurts, like I'm like struggling, like we're carrying the groceries and the gallon of water. All of a sudden, this little old lady, she like pulls over on her car and she's like, would you like a ride? And I was like, and I was like, sure, because it was just the sweetest thing. It was like a small town and everything. And then I get in the car and I'm like, wait a minute, I know you. And she's like, I know you too. And we found out that she was someone I had given an astrology reading to like 5 or 6 years before. And so I'm like, okay. And I tell her where my Airbnb and I tell her why I'm here. Cause she's like, I thought you went to Vancouver. And I was like, I did, but I'm down here getting my passport renewed. I told her I was staying at Airbnbs and, I'm going to be here, some indefinite amount of time until this passport comes back. And then she drives me to the place and she's like, well, honey, you can stay with me. And she's like, I have a 3-story house. You could have the whole bottom level. It's a separate entrance. It has a deck, its own bathroom, and a whole other wing. Like you wouldn't even hear me and my husband. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, what are the odds of this? Right. So I said, I'm staying at this place for the week, but if I, thank you for the offer. So that's when it resonated with me. I was like, hello, you don't have to spend any more money. That kept happening for the rest of my trip. Every time I was about to leave someplace, another friend would be like, hey, I have an apartment here and I'm going camping for the week. Do you want to stay at my place? It would just yeah.
Okay. I'm so glad you said this. And this is how powerful we are. Like, I don't know if I told you this story. I had a very similar story when I was like literally homeless in Miami Beach for a few hours because I walked out of this guy I was staying with. Anyways, it was very toxic. And I literally, there was one night I left because we got in this big fight and I manifested a hotel to stay at for that night at like the Ritz-Carlton. It was like $800 a night. It was crazy. And then like my own room, these guys like bought me my own room.
Wow.
I haven't told many people that story, but then it happened again. Like I walked out and I was like homeless in Miami. And I was like, I just needed trust. Like I needed to leave that. It was like it was just not a good situation. Not that he was a bad person, but it was just very like a lot of aggression and anyways, whatever. So I walked out and I did a manifestation ritual on Miami Beach. And I kid you not, it's so crazy the timing of this. It's like me and my dog and my thing. And I'm like, hey, spirit, you help me heal my eye. Like you've guided me for the past, like however many months. And then these guys from this crypto mansion, it was like a temple and a crypto mansion. They messaged and asked if I could watch the fit while they were going to Peru on their freaking private jet. And I'm like, yes. And they had no idea that I didn't have a place to stay. And it's so crazy because one of the guys from that temple, and the crypto mansion, like he literally messaged me out of the blue the other day. He's like, if you're ever in Florida, and I actually just got invited to Miami, but I didn't end up going. I could be there right now. It just feel fully in alignment. And I was like, okay, we'll be there in the fall. But it was like so weird that he just messaged me and you just told that story. But this is like, for everybody listening, this is how powerful we are. The resources,
literally magnets.
Literal, like we electromagnetic. We have an electromagnetic field. Electro is like the intention we send out. It is the masculine energy. It's the penetrative energy. It's the like, what do you desire? And the magnetic is the feminine. It's drawing it to us. So like all of this is measurable. And back to the health in the eyes, like when a lot of that's correlated to emotion. So it doesn't, I mean, we talked about this and like your body's healed and like it happened right after, like when the things were happening with you and your husband and you were like separating, but like all of that is emotion and it creates distortions in our electromagnetic field, which then can create health issues and many other things, but like abundance blocks as well. It's like, that's a distortion. I don't know if I should say this on here, but I don't care. I had a $20,000 sales day. It wasn't a cash day, but sales day without even like, I sent one email to sell a thing. Right after I cleared a distortion of something from childhood where I felt like I couldn't have support. And I like bawled my eyes out. And then the next day I was like, it was magic. But this is the power of clearing these things. And if we don't clear them, we're stuck in the cycle. The matrix of our mind, our beliefs, our paradigm is creating the reality that we can perceive. And by clearing them with these tools and understanding the universal laws, then our lives change. It can't not change. As we change in our field, in our belief systems, and our neural pathways, by the way, the activations also rewire the neural pathways, as do the transmissions. But like, as we change, our life has to shift. And that's how we manifest. We can't manifest without shifting our beliefs and our energy. Change your life. And this is another reason, I'm going on a riff here, but this is another reason so many people, I told you this, told me like, make the program like only available for a limited time. And I was like, no, because I want to reward action takers, people who signed up for the first round, and everybody, you heard it, everybody had shifts in whatever they were working on, manifestations. And I want people to have the tools for the rest of their lives, so that you're like, oh, I have a shadow thing. Okay, I can go back to the shadow activation. You know what I mean? And so like when I launched this again, this specific course, Decoding Manifestation, in the fall, like everyone there is going to have lifetime access. And then they'll have me for Q&A. It's going to be a little bit different because now the program's created. So I'll be there for different times for Q&A. And as I said, you guys get that for lifetime with all my programs. They're all lifetime access. And it's like, because I want people to have these tools. And as you go back and listen, you'll hear things that you couldn't understand before, because your level of consciousness is different. Like I go back to courses where it's like, I've heard it like so many times, and then another thing clicks. And I'm like, whoa, like I've heard this how many times? And then it's like, oh, I had to shift my energy first, or other things had to shift. And then now I can understand it from a different level. And it's crazy. Like I had a guy, I kid you not, he did my Surrendering into Abundance course, which was like, I don't even know when I launched that. I think it was like, it was last fall. And he used those tools, and then he just manifested a house. He got gifted a freaking house.
Oh my God.
But it's like, if he just had the tools for a little bit and didn't, then he wouldn't have been able to like go back over and over. It was so crazy. Like I saw him before he left too. And he did the shamanic breath work, because I have it in that one as well. The virtual one, he did it like, he was doing it like 3 times a week. And I'm like, you literally look like a different person. He's like, I know that the energy of it's so good. Like I was doing it, and like entities were like leaving my body and like all this darkness. And I'm like, keep doing it. Cause like, I'm boggled the shifts, boggled. And that's like one more thing that I really honor that you do, is like, you use the tools. Everybody who's using the tools consistently, like it's like shift, manifestation, shift. And I'm like getting all these messages. I like can't keep up. Like some of them I don't even share. Like, oh my God. But like the people who don't do the work, it's like, yeah, they'll shift, but not nearly as much. And it's like, use the tools, which is why, like, I think I actually struggled with this. I haven't talked about this a lot, but I used to struggle with like, oh, I'm a healer, so I should like save the world and I should just gift everything. And then it got to a point where I had all this resentment, and I realized like I've rewired this. I don't do that anymore, because then I'm like spewing resentment over people. I'm like, oh, I'm healed, but I'm spewing resentment over you. My coach helped me with that. But anyways, but it's like when people don't invest in themselves, they don't shift as much. When they invest in themselves, it's like, okay, now there's something like at stake. And it was crazy. Like when I created my first like Masterclass, can't remember what it was, a while ago, I gifted like a bunch of people, and like none of them listened to it. And then everyone who invested in it, it was like massive shifts. And that's like something I think is, I'm going to start talking about with healers, because we're not doing anybody a service if people aren't choosing themselves. And there has to be some sort of energetic exchange. Otherwise, like karmically, it's an imbalance, and it has to balance out. It will always balance out in one way, shape, or form. But if we can do it cleanly and people invest in themselves, and then they get something that's going to change their life in return, like, then karmically, we're not going to have all these like crazy things happen, which I won't get into today. I'll do another podcast about this, but yeah. And like, honestly, I was like, I was like so blown away by hearing everybody's shifts in the program. And I'm so excited for the next round and like all the, that's like when more people realize like actually the power within and are willing to do the work, the inner work and the energy work, because it's not easy, as you know, you're like, oh, I'm getting triggered, I'm going to go into that. And it's like, yeah, then the trigger's gone and you've embodied that part of your shadow. And now you have that power. It doesn't have power over you. And that's actually how we create a better world. It's like, but some people aren't ready to do the work, and that's okay. That's okay. It's perfect and divine. And like, I love my family. Never, ever, ever will they probably do this work. I'm the one in the lineage. But more and more people are waking up to it. And that's like my vision, is like to keep having people wake up to it and realize the power within and realize that we are all one. And as one rises, we all rise, and that we can all contribute with our gifts, and we can live a life of abundance in alignment with our purpose and our gifts, and that we can do what we love and get compensated abundantly for that. I think so many people think that, oh, I have to like suffer and I have to sacrifice for like my whole life, and then like maybe at the end I can enjoy my life. And it's like, no, we don't need to sacrifice and we don't need to suffer. In fact, more abundance comes when we're living our purpose, because we're contributing more. And like it makes me so sad. I said this in the beginning of the course, and like it keeps coming up. It makes me so sad when people like sacrifice for the like so much of their life. And I have a family member who's like really sick right now going through this, and she's like, she didn't say it to me, but she said to somebody else, that I sacrificed so much to enjoy life.
Ooh, goodness.
And then now like, look what's happening. I won't go into detail with what's happening, but it's like, it doesn't need to be that way. And also even like understanding neuroscience, because you know, I'm a neuroscience geek.
Yeah.
Like the neural pathways get more ingrained to like, oh, if I'm suffering, so that, okay, now the job's done and you have like all the money or whatever, because you thought it could only come from that source, which is incorrect. But anyways, but then your neural pathways are like suffering. So like suffering keeps wiring in the brain, even when you're not doing the other thing. And then you become addicted to it. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks all about this. He was my first teacher.
And you actually sent me, I think your masterclass on suffering was huge for me. Like you sent that to me, and it so much opened up for me after I listened to that. It was just like, oh, and then even more manifestations happened.
Suffering isn't sacred, guys. It's on my link tree. I think it's like $111. There's an activation masterclass. It will change the game. I did that masterclass because I realized I used to be addicted to suffering. And I was like, oh my God. And then I realized it, and I'm like, my body literally was addicted to suffering. Like I was in chronic pain. I would put myself in jobs and circumstances where I was like suffering because I was holier than thou. And I'm like, this is so messed up. I was so brainwashed to think this is good. Like in what world? And also as the healer and like a facilitator for manifestation, like all the energy work, if I'm suffering, that's a low vibration. So I need to be in a high vibration in order to channel like more potent, powerful energy. So when I released that and rewired that in my brain, which took a while, it took some work, but like so much shifted with like firstly, like my manifestations, and then like sending energy to clients. It was so much more powerful because I wasn't carrying that like suffering, sacrifice, shame, guilt energy, which are like low vibrations. I just got a little bit off topic sometimes.
No, it's okay. I led you there because I was excited about the suffering masterclass and everything it did for me. Yeah.
I'm so glad it was valuable. Okay. So what was your absolute, I have a few questions for you to end. What was your absolute favorite manifestation or favorite insight throughout the course?
Okay. Okay. My favorite one to use is what if, because what I like about what if is the ability, because I could detach from it immediately. I don't start ruminating. How is that going to show up? It's just literally like, what if this happened? Boom, bye, and then it would just happen. I use that on a daily basis. I get stuff on a daily basis with what if. It's just like, oh, there it is. Oh, I forgot about it. There it is. And then also now this one wasn't as easy, but it was gold, was the making a choice. Because, and I'll use that as an example when I was working with dealing with men, because this is actually kind of coincided with the story about the woman who, my friend who I stayed with for a week and had this most magical experience with. But I was down, in California, and I was really like, I was like, okay, I'm interested in dating, and who would I be dating, and who is, like, I haven't dated, it was just different. I was just like, this is a whole nother thing. Like, being someone who's divorced and dating is very different than being somebody who's separated and dating. Right. Mm-hmm. So I was, I was like trying to attune, like, what's the kind of the energy I want to bring to me. And, the last person I had dated was a really kind of controlling energy. He was a very alpha guy. And I thought that was something I was attracted to until I had that. And then so I attracted him to me, basically, I was looking for this alpha guy, and then he showed up, and it was really sexy and everything, but he was like super controlling. I was like, no, thank you. So I actually talked to you about that, and you were like, hey, you work with this alignment. So as soon as I decided that that's not what I wanted, and I kind of switched it a little bit. I made the choice. Nope, that's not what I want, because I did like see him around while I was down there, and I was like, don't go in that direction, Kerrie. So once when I was like, I made a choice that I don't want that. What I want is someone who has more of an emotional relatability, more emotional intelligence, and like we can relate and that kind of thing. Boom, this other guy shows up. And so this other guy showed up, and he was perfect and all this other stuff. But he had a girlfriend. And even if he had a girlfriend, you could tell the relationship was kind of like on the rocks and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I kept being like, this is the perfect one though, right? So I kept being like, even though he has a girlfriend, I'm going to still leave this open. And he was making a lot of, anyway. So, but then I was like, I kept saying like the universe, I kept remembering like the universe like gives you I think there's something you said that you get what you tolerate or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling kind of like, I like his attention, but I like to be a priority, and I'm not going to get that with somebody who has a girlfriend. And I didn't do anything with him, but it was just like, it can only go in this direction, and I wouldn't be a priority. So I had to give that person, I had to like, and what's funny is that every time I was going to go work with him or do something with him or just like have lunch or coffee or whatever, like there would be some problem, be like, oh, I can't make it that day. Or there's like a roadblock or something would literally happen. I would just be like, oh my God, this is really funny now at this point, where it was just like, this is not for you, Kerrie, this is not for you. Yeah. And I was stubborn, but then I was like, you know what? I'm letting it go. I want, I'm so great that he has that emotional, intelligence that I really love. We have great conversations, but like, I want somebody who's single, who has that, but he's also single. Right. So then, as soon as I made that decision, I was at my friend's house that I had stayed with, the woman mm-hmm. who would offer me her place. And I was about to move into another place, and she was so kind. She was going to drive me to the next place. So I'm downstairs at her place, and I'm packing my suitcase and everything. And all of a sudden I hear this guy's voice upstairs in her house. And I'm like, wait, because her husband was like in his 70s. And I was like, this guy doesn't sound like he's in his 70s. And something in my head was like, go upstairs, Kerrie. And I was like, I don't need to go upstairs though. Why would I go upstairs? And the voice was like, go upstairs. So I go upstairs. On the stairs, I look up, there's this ridiculously good looking man, like standing in her living room. And we just locked eyes. And then she introduced us. And then she was like, I think you should get an astrology reading from Kerrie. And he was like, okay. And she just she goes and gives him my phone number. I didn't say anything. And I was sitting there going, I'm being set up right now. And then, and I got to see him while I was there. So what was interesting. So the reason why I'm telling that story is that literally, this is the woman from the like alkaline gallons water story. And then just my choice of like, I'm no longer going to deal with this energy over here. It's almost like you're curating with the universe. You know, it's like the universe keeps showing you like, hey, this is what you're aligned to. And you can be stubborn if you want to, like I was, you know, like I kept being trying to make things happen with the other guy. But after a while, I start listening and I start going, this isn't who I am. Right. And there is something better. I don't have to hold on to this thing so tightly, you know, out of fear or whatever it was. You know, I think that was fear that I thought, no, I think I had a fear that I wouldn't have someone else. I wouldn't get what I wanted. Like there was such a fear. There was this fear that like, I'm not going to get exactly what I want. So I should just go for what's here, you know? And, but then I remembered that you get what you tolerate. So then all of a sudden this other guy showed up and he was single and he was in a better, you know, so it's just interesting how, and then, you know, I've returned back here to Vancouver, and then it's interesting because there's somebody here that I've known for about a year now that has suddenly sprung up again. And it's just like, okay, so as it's all an inside job is what I'm trying to say. Like
100%.
the more, every time I change something about myself and I put myself wanting a different direction, or I use that minimum standard activation a lot, that's where that's what helped me get to like, this is how much money I'm willing to pull in every month. And this is how much money and resources, by the way. And this is how much, this is the kind of person I want to be romantically involved with. When I set those standards, it literally just showed up for me. Like it literally showed up in this woman's house, you know?
Yeah.
And that never would have happened otherwise.
100%. And it's so true. Like, it's like, we 100% get what we tolerate. And I wrote a post this morning or an email, I can't remember, maybe both, because I'm doing another shamanic breathwork ceremony. I'm in person. And I was like, I got a beautiful testimonial from this woman. She just randomly sent it from like a month ago. And I was like, okay, I'm doing like a discount for Mother's Day. And I remembered all of these women for some reason when I started doing shamanic breathwork. And I think this is because I used to have a lot of abusive partnerships before I shifted something internally, but I've had at least 7 women who were in relationships with abusive partners. Some were married and some were in relationships. And after a ceremony or 2 ceremonies, they left. This woman wasn't, but I was just really inspired by her shifts. But it reminded me like, oh, why do people not leave relationships like that? Because they don't think that there's another option. They don't realize that they're getting that because they're tolerating it. And the moment they stop and walk away and create space and shift internally, then something, I don't want to say better, but yes, better, more aligned comes in. Somebody who's not abusive, somebody who is putting you first, somebody like whatever you want. Everyone wants something different. Somebody who, if you want to be monogamous and they want to be polyamorous, somebody who wants monogamy, or vice versa.
Right.
But it's like people, we're not taught that we're getting certain things are appearing because we're tolerating them. Like I look back on my life from years ago and I'm like, I worked at some good restaurants, but some of them were not good and like stealing our tips. And I was literally slaving away. I wouldn't tolerate that anymore. But old Jill did, because she thought that was the only option. She didn't even realize, oh, there's like other options of like how to like make money. You know what I mean? Until like to me out of the restaurant industry via numerous injuries. That's actually how I got set on this path. I'm going to do a podcast on that about breaking my arm and like getting gifted my first Joe Dispenza retreat. But
oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't think you know that story.
No, I don't.
My customers gifted me, they sent me $2,500. I barely knew them. I'll do another podcast on that. It's crazy. And the number of synchronicities, like, again, it's the same principle. This is before I even understood these principles fully. But yeah, like, but I was tolerating that. And I tolerated like abusive friendships in the past, and I tolerated abusive partnerships. Like, now it's just not tolerable. I just don't tolerate it. And it's not a vibe. Like, even if something is like beautiful, like whether it be a partnership or a friendship or whatever, but I know it's not fully in alignment, I will let it go because it's best for both parties.
Right.
And there is no space to call in things when there's so much energetic space of things that aren't in full alignment. And like, we can tweak. That's another thing that I like personally love about the course is it's like the minimum standard. Okay, I'm gonna call this thing in, boom, it appears, and you're like, oh great, I got it, yay. And now there's other things that I actually need to tweak. So let's tweak these with like the tools, and then do the activation, and then integrate that, and then boom, something else that's more in alignment appears, because sometimes you don't know exactly what you want until you get what you want, and then you're like, yay, and this is not in alignment. This part is, I'll take that and I'll keep that. And then people will shift around you, or they'll follow, and people who are in alignment will come in. And like, I even did this with clients, like my one-on-one clients, like all my one-on-one clients right now are so soul aligned. They're literally like family. But there was a period of time where I called in like a number of one-on-one clients and they were not aligned. Like some were, but some of them I was like, God, I had like dudes telling me they were in love with me, and like, and I'm like, oh my God. And like, this is like in person, some of these, and, or just like very manipulative. I shouldn't even say manipulative, like an abusive energy of like, cause I had some some clients who were like, do like really, really well financially. And some of them are lovely. And some of them like were very controlling. And like, I'm like, that is not a vibe. That doesn't exist in my vortex anymore. But I have to be like, okay, cool, called in like all these clients, some of them aren't soul aligned. Okay, now I'm gonna code these manifestations to only call in people I'm meant to work with and that have like these qualities. And like, I'm not tolerating abuse. I'm not tolerating, like, I don't care if you're a billionaire, like you don't treat me like shit, period. But there was a period where I had to go through that, or like, you know, so it's always learning, and it's always like, we can always tweak. And I feel like I feel like this work you can do literally forever, because it's like, okay, now I'm up leveling more and more and more, and things are shifting. And now my minimum standards higher and higher. And like things I tolerate have shifted, because I didn't even like seeing that you're tolerating certain things, because we go to familiar. So like if you grew up, for example, in an abusive household, that is going to be familiar, especially in your partnerships. And then catching that and being like, whoa, this is not what I desire. Like seeing that there is something else. Or like if you were sexually abused, like partners where you feel like you're just there to serve them sexually, like that's another thing that I experienced. And then I've seen working with people, it's like, no, there's another way. Like that's there can be like a beautiful devotion to each other. And it shouldn't feel like you're just giving away your body. And again, that's like a boundaries thing, but it's like in every single area of our life, there's all these like nuances, and we can shift piece by piece by piece by piece by piece until like we're completely living the life of our dreams, and then just expanding from there. Okay. So thanks for listening to my other mini transmission.
Loved it.
Do you feel like the tools are still, after the course is done? I mean, we're going to be relaunching, so there's going to be Q&A, but like, even though the course is officially done, like, and you still have the tools, have you been able to keep calling in manifestations and keep using them? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like I am devoted to the work. I mean, I think that's one of the things that you, in that, like your last class, you were talking about, like, here's the way this works, right? Like being devoted to the work. And so it's just not a one and done with me. And because I was able to see so many manifestations come in such succession. And so, you know, you start to like, you know, before when I was saying like, oh, I was stubborn, I was holding on to this thing, you start to get okay with letting the stuff go. You know, you start to just be like, oh, well, something else is going to come, because I've seen it now. I know it. And so I do the divination tools every day. Like it's literally on my calendar. It's part of it. And some days I'll just, which are the fun days where I'm like, oh, there's nothing to clear. Okay. And I won't do it today, because I'll literally sit there and be like, well, don't make up something, Kerrie. If there's nothing to do, there's nothing to do. And so then I won't do it. But like, it's on my calendar that, this is the time that I have to do that if there's something to be worked on today. And I love it. And what I've also noticed, well, I've talked about this before, is that you can be very generous with other people when so much generosity is being given to you. And that's like this added bonus. So it's like, I've been able to, gift people. I was tipping. I tip people every time I do something. I give money when I have it to someone who's homeless or someone who's like, just like making music on the street or what have you. It's like, I gifted a reading for a friend recently. Like, it's like, you don't even think about these things. Whereas before, when you're in like the scarcity mindset, you'd be like, well, I don't even have what I want. How can I give that to anybody else? And so there's this lovely generosity that I am able to embody now and to have, where I get to give to people, and then other people, like when I was in California, people would just be like, Kerrie's magic, and they would just be like, Kerrie's magic. Like, oh, did you hear what happened to Kerrie? And they'd be like, well, how did that happen? They'd be like, oh, because Kerrie's magic. And they would just become Kerrie's magic. That's just why, because Kerrie's magic. And I mean, that it got to the point where other people started believing that magic could happen for them as well. So then different friends would kind of show up for me and say, hey, this thing happened. And I'd be like, oh, that's wonderful, because just like kind of being an example of what can happen if you trust and believe and you're consistent, it's just being an example is helping other people to that like divine world that you're talking about.
Yeah. It's the permission slip. Like, what's possible for you is possible for me, and what's possible for me is possible for you. And all of us, like, some people are like, oh, only certain people have gifts. I'm like, no, we all have different gifts, I believe. But we all have gifts, and we all are always creating a reality, and we are all magical. We just got to tap in, tune in, like, have the tools, have the resources. This is why I'm obsessed with this work. Like, I will never stop learning about it. I will never stop like practicing it, living a life of devotion, and like studying with mentors or healers that I feel called to. And it's that piece. Like, I love that you said that, because it's when our cup is so full, all we want to do is give. And there's a caveat: when we're in scarcity or when our cup's not full and we're giving out of obligation, it's a very different energy. And it's like, we get to fill our own cup, and we get to call in the resources. And from there, it's like, then we want to give. And like, yeah, I'm going to tell this story. I'm not going to mention names, but there's somebody who's been very profound influence in my life. I like owe this person in my life, like so profound, an amazing healer. And they said to me, they're like, you care so much about people and you give so much, like, that they have given me like over $15,000 USD of like gifted sessions. And like, they don't do this. And I was like, whoa, like, but it's because they see that I'm contributing. But I can't do that also. Like, there's a fine line. You can't do that if your cup is not full. And that used to be, it's like the wounded healer. So it's like finding that balance and what is of the highest too. Because some people, if you're just enabling people all the time, then they don't see their power. They don't see, oh, I have the ability to find the resources. And sometimes, like, whether it's like an $80 thing or like a $40 thing or like a $9,000 thing, like if I see somebody in their power and they're like, well, I don't have the $50 or I don't have the 5,000, I'm like, okay, make the choice and be committed and see the resources come, so it's like, because it will. And I think it's so important for people to realize that. And that being said, it's like, I mean, like I said, there's a family member who's like sick right now. So obviously I'm not going to like charge them for a healing,
Of course.
So it's like finding that balance and seeing, where am I enabling people and where am I allowing people to rise? And I've seen my mentors do that and my coaches. It's like, I invest a lot of money in like mentors and coaches, but like every single time it's like, oh my God. And then it's like, no, trust. And then it comes, the abundance comes in ways that I couldn't have expected. And I'm so clear that it has to come in alignment. Like I won't do anything that's like causing harm to other people. Whereas I see some people in business where it's like, they're actually not benefiting humanity. They're doing a detriment, but they don't see that they can actually contribute and cause that same amount of abundance and more. And like, so yeah, there's all these nuances and things. And like, I always try and look back. It's like, how can this be of the highest for me and for humanity? And where is it? And like, one of my coaches like really helped me with that, because she used to gift. And then it was like, she was making such good money, but she had none. And like, it was all this resentment. Now it's like, even like with her father, like looking into, okay, like, is gifting this money to him, is it helping him or is it not? I've actually with like a few mentors and coaches when I just spent a weekend with, and it was like really interesting to see these like nuances of like, and she's like massively abundant, like multi-millionaire, but seeing the nuances of like when she feels called to give, and when it's actually not of the highest for either party. And it's like, but in order to do that, we get to fill our own cup first, and we must. This is why I feel like I'm like preaching right now or something. This is why I literally like spent years doing like deep inner work with healers. I traveled the world and I worked with them and I studied with them, and I still do. Now I'm creating a lot as well, but like that, for anybody wanting to learn to like really manifest and really create their own life or really help humanity, like start with yourself, start with your own healing, start with investing in yourself, because once you're resourced, then you can help other people. We can't sustainably help other people if we are not resourced. And it's like, sometimes that means just also like taking a day to yourself or like sleeping in.
I've done a lot of that. Yeah.
You know? So
well, I also wanted to just add to that, like the power of, I think this is probably the power of going through the courses with you and having a coach, because there were different times throughout my manifestation, the beginning of my manifestation journey, where I did have friends that were getting all these amazing resources, and I was starting to feel depleted, because they would, it's like their energy, they kept thinking it was coming from me. Right. So it was like I would feel like, oh, I'm so depleted. Like, and it's really like, it's that magic that they have themselves, but they're just seeing me, as an example and being able to believe it for themselves, but they think it's coming from me. So they wanted to be around me all the time, and they wanted me to do all these things. And I remember bringing that to you and being like, I'm feeling like really depleted now, like with my friends and all this stuff. And so that's why I'm saying, like, one of the things I think about, like, you can do the manifestations, the divinations, all that stuff, but like, it really does help to have a coach as you're going along, to have somebody to reflect back to and go, okay, you can tweak this a little bit here. Like, you don't have to be giving this much, or you don't have to be, you have to replenish your own well, like just little things like that you wouldn't know until you get into the process.
100%. And this is why I always have a coach or a mentor, sometimes several at a time, and sometimes just one, but like to see those blind spots, because also it's like, for me, like manifestation is like my favorite thing in the world. But like, when I started learning, like I didn't know all this stuff. Like I had to go through so many initiations and whatever. And it's only been in the last year that I really hired like high level, like mentors and coaches to be that mirror, essentially, to be like, okay, well, like, what are you doing here? Where's your energy here? And like, I actually wish I had done that earlier in my journey, because I've been working with a lot of healers. And this is actually, one more caveat. Some of the healers I studied with, not all of them, some of them were like, oh, don't charge for your services. Oh, you need to live in like scarcity. Otherwise it's bad. And even I see this in the spiritual community.
Doesn't help
So
at all.
I mean, I've been studying with healers for like, I guess 4 years now. And I remember living with one in particular. I've lived with a few of them, but there's this one moment where this woman said her partner freaked out because I asked for an apple. And like, I was getting my groceries, but I didn't have a car, and it was like 12 or whatever at night. And then he was like, I spent so much money on food. And I was like, because it's organic. I was like, oh my God. And in that moment, I was like, I don't want to live like this. Like, if this is what the healing arts is, I'm out. Like, I'm going back to serving or corporate or whatever. And then I started realizing, like, Jill, you need to hire people who are embodying like abundance and doing things at the highest. And of course, those investments were like a lot bigger, and I had to work through all my like money stuff to be like, okay, like I can make this investment. And some of them I made were shitty, to be honest, but it broke the thing. And some of them were amazing. And it was just like, oh, you can have both. And also, like, I totally get what you're saying. And when you brought that up in class, like I was like, I've been through this, because as you start to up level, they basically, if you don't protect your energy, people will siphon it. So that can happen. And it's unconscious, like whether it's like friends or people at the grocery store or whatever, like energy protection is huge. You're going to learn more of this in Reiki. I'm so excited you're doing it. But also it's like, okay, if you're investing, like at this point, I've probably invested over $150,000 USD in like coaches, mentors, healers, like whatever. And it's like, okay, if you're investing all this time and energy, then like, you're not obligated to give that to other people who haven't made those investments. And it's not saying that they have to invest that much, but I got caught in this because I was having people swarm me and just like want to hang out all the time. And I was like, I'm depleted. And I was like, oh, I have to give them. And I was like, but I'm choosing to invest in me and to heal and to learn these tools and like travel across the world and continuously do it. And I'll never stop. Like, I'm always going to be up leveling my skills in one way, shape, or form. But it's like, why am I like, it's not my job to save them. They can choose to invest in whatever feels good for them. That might be a $20 thing. That might be, you know, like watching free stuff. I have free stuff. Dr. Joe has free stuff. Like many people have free things. I have a free abundance activation. If you guys don't have it, it's on my Instagram too. But like, it's not our job to save all of humanity when we're not fully resourced.
Right.
People have to choose. And then it's this whole thing too, where it's like, hey, now you have these tools, you have this wisdom, you have, and like, yes, I love sharing these. Like, that's why I like put a bunch of these stories on Instagram, and I'm probably going to move them onto the podcast, but like, I want to give free content. And also there comes a point where it's like, where does this not feel good? So like, I literally sent a message today to somebody I love so much, a friend. She's also like been a client, but she's not a client right now. She's not a one-on-one client. And it was like asking for advice. And I just said, I love you. And like company policy as of like a little bit ago, I remember when I made this choice, is like, I don't give free coaching or mentorship over DMs anymore. Like, that's for people in live programs when there's Q&As, or people who I'm working with privately. Cause it's like, I already have it. Like, there's a lot to go through with like my one-on-one clients. And like, there's only so much energy and capacity we have in one day. I can't be like responding to, I kid you not, there was times when 100 people would message me a day wanting advice. I'm not joking. Like, one of my coaches,
crazy.
Like, you know, like sometimes if somebody needs some advice on like something small and they've been in my world or whatever, I'm like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, like, but my programs, like, I don't gatekeep anything. I give so much. So it's like, when people aren't even like, if they're not willing to like choose themselves, or they're in this victim mentality, like, I don't work with victims anymore. I also set that as like a coding thing. I just don't call
That's good.
My teacher, one of my coaches, I just spent some time with her. She literally said, she's like, I can dance with the darkness, but if you choose darkness, I can't work with you. This is what she says to people. And one thing in choosing darkness is choosing depression, is choosing being in a victimhood, is choosing all these things. And I get it. I've been there. And when you're like, I'm choosing myself, that's actually what drove me. A huge part of what drove me on this journey was like, I was at rock bottom. I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to live on this planet. So something needs to shift. Otherwise, like, I'm out. Like, my soul is like out. and that was like, I remember I was like crying on the bathroom floor. This is a few years ago. And I was like, something's shifting. I'm choosing myself. That's right before I went to Greece and Cyprus. I was in a like deep trauma response of something. And it was like one of the best gifts I could have ever had. But I didn't choose. I was in depression. I was in like this dark place, but I didn't choose it. I was dancing with it. And that's what she was like saying the other day. And I was like, I love that. And I'm going to like bring that. I mean, I have already, but even more into like the work that I do. Cause it's like, if people are choosing that and they're not choosing to transform, I'm not saying they have to transform themselves. I can help people transform. You can help people transform, like, but they can't choose the darkness. They have to choose themselves.
Ooh, that's really good.
Yeah.
So you should
anyway,
write like a book of all these little gems.
Pardon me?
I was saying you should do like just a little, like you should do one, like a book or just a class of just these little gems. Because it's like, even just hearing that is something I will keep with me. Like, you little phrases like you get what you tolerate, or what if this or what if that. It's like you remember those as you're going through something. And it's like you need all of them, the little nuggets.
And there's so many, and there's so many nuances. And I feel like it's because I live this work. Because if I were just to say this and I didn't embody it, you wouldn't hear it in the same way.
No, you'd just be like a meme on Instagram that you just flip through and you don't actually like feel any of that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the energy transmission. Well, I'm starting a mastermind. I'm not sure when, but I'll keep you posted. So maybe we'll do like, it's going to be some masterclasses and Q&A.
I'm excited.
So anyways, last question. And then I would love you to share where people can find you, and we'll link it in the show notes too. But the last question is, for when deCODING Manifestation launches again, or any other program, Surrendering to Abundance is going to launch in about like 3 weeks. We're doing a launch again. What, with this type of work, if somebody was on the fence and they were like, I'm interested, but I don't know if it will work for me, and they're in fear, what would you tell them for somebody who's on the fence from your experience of going through this?
Wow. I would actually say, if they're saying things like, it's not for me, then, I'm going to be controversial here and say, maybe it's not.
Oh no, I agree with that.
Okay.
I said, what if they said, I can't remember what I said. I agree. If this isn't for somebody, there's a lot of people that this is not for. Like I said, a lot of my friends from high school, this is not for. A lot of my friends in the service industry, this is not for them. They're not there. Not in a good or bad way. It's just their paradigm is not in any way, shape, or form like in alignment with this work, because it is work and not a lot of people are willing to do it. And you also have to be open to this type of work in order for it to really have a profound effect. But if they think that they are like interested in it and they think it is potentially for them, but afraid it won't work, or afraid that like, what if it works for somebody else, but not for me? I hear this a lot. I
honestly, I mean, I feel like this is what I would have liked to hear if I was saying that to somebody. If I would be like, well, what if it doesn't work? And I would have liked to hear someone say, but what if it does?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
I mean, the amount of electricity that goes through my body saying that, because that's when you tapped in, like, what if it does? It's so much bigger than you.
100%. 100%. Amazing. Okay. So where can people find you? You amazing astrologer.
Oh gosh. You can find me at my website. I'm called Self-Kerrie. That's SELFK as in kite, ARRIE. So it's like the scary movie Carrie, but except with a K instead of a C. And that's my website. I do astrology readings. I do astrology coaching. I do all kinds of energetic work with my clients. It's pretty profound, the work that I do. I have 2 podcasts that I just launched, and I have a merchandise line that I just launched. And that is all since I started doing the manifestation work. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know about that. That must have happened right after the course ended.
Absolutely.
You're just killing it. I love hearing these stories.
Just opportunities kept showing up and I just kept saying yes. And so yeah.
And they'll continue to more and more and more. So amazing. We will link all of that in the show notes. Any last little nuggets from the podcast?
I think probably the biggest, again, the choice thing for me, that was the biggest thing because I have boundaries issues and I have, I had boundary issues. I have all these things that keep me from being afraid to branch out. And so it's easy for me to abandon an idea and think that that's doing something. And because it's too overwhelming, I'll abandon it. And so just that little golden nugget of like, even if you don't make a choice, you're making a choice. That was like the biggest thing for me. And so now with anything, I make the choice, even if I have to sit there and go, okay, maybe the choice is not right now, but it's coming. Right. I'm making this choice and it is magic. As soon as I make the choice, something else shows up. And so that's what I would say for everybody. Maybe that's even they can start with right now. It's like something as small as what's the small thing that you can make a choice about today and see how it shows up, how you can bring it to you.
I love that. That's actually where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. They don't make the choice, whether it's a yes or no. And like, for me, if somebody is like, say they're like, I want to work with you one-on-one, or I want to like go to this ceremony, or I want to take a masterclass or a course, and it's like, they're in the limbo of not making the choice. I would rather like have them make a choice of no, if it's not for them, or even if they're like afraid. I mean, I hope we can work past the fear and make it from love. But if it's a no, I would rather them make that choice for them and for me, so that it's not this like open loop in this limbo, because the moment you make the choice is when things start to shift, even if it's a no. And like, like I said, like I never am attached to like, if somebody's going to work with me one-on-one or take a program or whatever, if it is of the highest, of course I want them in. And of course I'd love to work with them. And if I really think, I'll like follow up with them if I'm like, yeah, we could do some really good work together. But I'm never attached. And I think that's like something that I see a lot of people too, like in sales or like in certain industries, they're like, oh, I need this person to sign up. I need this person to take this course. And it's like, no, if it's not in alignment, like those clients that I told you before, that it was like, that was a big lesson. It was like, hey, these weren't in alignment. I wasn't clear with who I wanted to work with. Well, what my mission was completely. So I had to like rearrange that. But the moment we release something, the right person, whether it's a partner, a client, a friend, a business partner, a VA, like they will come in. I let go of part of my old team and like, I was like, oh, I'm not going to find anyone good. And like, boom, an amazing OPM like just appeared with, and she's doing like, she is like a graphic designer and all these things and like branding. I'm like, I don't even know what like my branding is. And they're like, they actually called me out. They're like, Jill, you're hiding. Cause I was in my apartment with like all my altars and like Isis energy and all these things. And they're like, you're like showing people online, like this image of like surface level stuff where you're like literally a shaman. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, and so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to come out of like what I actually do. I don't care what people think or say, but that's the thing. It's like the choice, whether it's a yes or no. And anyone who's going to judge your no, like you probably don't want to, it's probably not aligned to be in their energy. Cause like I've had people be like, I'll be like, hey, I have this ceremony, feel like it'd be good. And they're like, no, not in alignment. Okay, cool. And then they come to another one because they're like, oh, she wasn't angry. Like, of course I'm not angry. Like, why
No.
would I be angry? If you were meant to be there, source would have brought you there. Like,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. And my abundance doesn't come from you. It comes from spirit. So I'm not looking at you as like a money, like, you know, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's these concepts that are like so profound and yet so intricate in so many ways. And it's like, when we really get them, it's like, whoa, nothing can stop us because we're not relying on, like, we realize the magic is truly, truly within. It's in the codes we hold. Our
Absolutely.
only job is to shift ourselves and is to make the choices that are in alignment. And sometimes we'll make the ones that are out of alignment, not realizing it, and then it'll be a lesson. And then we grow and shift. And
Yes. And
it's
as you
so-
were talking, I thought of another one too, which is important to me, was make the choice and then make an aligned action. That is also the follow-up, because that, for me anyway, it may not be for everybody, but like making a choice, I also had to make an aligned action. And when I
Yes.
did that, it was like, boom. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad you said that. I almost did a live the other day on the law of action. Like, we must take an action to signal. Like, for example, when I went to, I talk about Greece a lot. Okay. So when I booked in with this profound healer who was like a major investment, I was in a trauma response and I was like,
Mm.
I'm just going to trust that this is all going to come back and that there was a reason this happened. And it was scary. And I was like, okay, no, I'm trusting the guidance. The synchronicities that led up to me even meeting this healer,
Was
like,
big,
were
right? Yeah.
profound. And now he's one of my main mentors. I'm like, if I wasn't in that trauma response, which came from a healing session that I did with somebody who is not properly trained, by the way, I'm going to talk more about this on another podcast, but like, I paid her $1,500 for one session. I'm assuming at that level, like, you are trained. She was not. Anyways, but trauma response led me to meeting one of my main mentors. And I'm like, I have 10 certifications. I don't need an 11th. And guess what? Now I have 11. and like, I love this man so much. Stop. For all y'all wondering, he's coming on my podcast. We're recording.
Cool. I can't wait.
But like, it was like, whoa, okay. That was the choice. Like, where do we not make the choice that we know is in alignment, even if it's scary? Because we can make it a decision. I'm going to grow, I'm going to expand, but then we don't do the thing. Like, we don't, for me too, it was the fear of, how can I hire a team? Like, what if I can't pay them? Oh my God. Like, and then I was looking at like, how much is that a year that I'm going to be paying them? And it's like, and anyways, so you have to go, but it's these choice points where it's like, no, I'm doing it. And then the resources appear. And sometimes they're already there, but we must take aligned action. Okay. I love you so much. We'll link everything in the show notes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm excited for all the rest of your manifestations.
Thank you. Me too. I'm
welcome.
excited to continue doing this work with you. It's changed my life, and I'm excited to change other people's lives. In the same way.
And the better it gets, the better it gets. Just going to keep up.
Yes. Thank you for your work.
So much love. You're very welcome. So much light, and I'll chat with you soon. Bye.